Thinking Liberty, Episode 11.
Welcome to Thinking Liberty, the podcast that explores lifestyles of freedom-minded individuals. Join us as we discuss work, hobbies, health, learning, and more while living a travel-orientated lifestyle. Be curious, be open, be inspired, be free. And now, here are your hosts, Zach and Sarah Varnell.
Hey everyone, welcome to Thinking Liberty, Episode 11. We're here in our mobile studio in Ephrata, Pennsylvania. I'm Zach.
And I'm Sarah, and we are actually wrapping up our trip to the Pennsylvania area. We head out soon for Connecticut, which we're pretty excited for. We're going to do a little mini New England tour. We've definitely enjoyed our time here in Pennsylvania, like always. It's definitely one of the places that I feel comfortable at and feel like home. This week we stayed behind one of my aunt and uncle's houses, and it's definitely one of our favorite stops so far. I mean, it's always a great time. They're just always so welcoming and warm. We had dinner with them one night. My uncle cooked, and it was amazing. And then we had another night where we just talked and exchanged music, and that was a lot of fun. And then we did get to catch up with my grandmother again, which was amazing, and visit with several other aunts and uncles. So it's just been a very busy, family-filled week, but it's always something that we look forward to doing when we ever get into this area.
Yeah, it's been fun, but by the time anybody hears this, we'll actually be near the beach in Connecticut, which will be nice. And hopefully the further north we get, the cooler it'll start to be, because it's been pretty hot here in Pennsylvania still.
Yeah, I think the other day I got up to like 96 degrees.
Yeah.
So for today's interview, we actually interviewed another RV couple. Their names are Hudson and Emily, and they live in a Bounder RV, and they're just the sweetest, nicest couple. We definitely had a great time talking to them, and it was a pretty interesting conversation, and we hope that maybe someday in the future we'll get to chat with them again, and it would be amazing if our RV paths crossed so that we could all hang out together. I think that you guys will enjoy it and learn a little bit from it. And since today's interview does center on RV life, we also wanted to take a minute and share a couple of things about our RV life, a couple of things that we did to change our RV that have really made it feel more like a home and made it more livable.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for us maybe has been our mattress, because I know in one episode we had somebody saying that, you know, if you sleep comfortably, you can live just about anywhere. And we definitely sleep comfortably after changing our mattress. When we first got the RV, it came with some, I don't know, basically pad, really thin mattress.
Yeah, I mean, it was maybe, being generous, like 4 inches thick.
Yeah, so we ordered one on Amazon, which we had never done before, really even heard of people doing at the time, although I know it's becoming more of a big thing now. And it arrived in a box and rolled up and vacuum packed, and just we cut it open and it plopped out into a full-size mattress. So
it was kind of funny because even though we knew it was going to take up the whole space of our bed, I think we still somehow didn't expect it to be as big as it was, because when we cut it up and unrolled it, we just kind of spread it out in the living room so that it could expand after being compressed. And then the next morning we woke up and it was just like, oh, where'd the living room go?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very thick foam mattress too, so it's really comfortable. And I think that's probably one of the top things we've done just to make the RV more livable, like you said. And probably it doesn't even, that's one of the best things you could do anywhere if you had a home or anything. Just paying attention to where you're sleeping and how you're sleeping goes a long way to quality of sleep and your quality of life.
Yeah, and I mean, every day is different for us. So, some days we are hiking for hours, and some days we just have long, stressful work days, and then other days we're spending, hours and hours walking around cities and, things like that. So it's always important to have a place where we can get a lot of rest and feel well rested when we get up the next day. So it's definitely been a plus. The second thing that I'd say has been pretty big for us, that I've actually missed lately because we haven't had it plugged in, but the hot water heater in RVs, it depends on the propane, the gas heat, so it's not always super reliable, and then it also it doesn't heat very much water, and it doesn't heat it for very long. So it makes it super hot, but then you run out of it really fast. And so it was really hard taking showers or washing dishes. We just really didn't have much water to work with.
You definitely couldn't do both in one night. If
Yeah.
you wash dishes, then, it's going to be hours before there was hot water for a shower.
Yeah, and unless I was super fast, I was getting into the habit of, like, I could either wash my hair or shave my legs, but not both.
Yeah.
So,
And maybe other RVs are better. Ours is a little bit older, so maybe, there might be some wear and tear on the hot water heater. And maybe it just wasn't the best one to begin with. A lot of the parts in our RV just weren't quality. So for a while we were looking into maybe changing our hot water heater, because I know there's nicer ones that run off of electricity and propane. And I think I've even heard of, some other ways that they can heat water. I don't remember off the top of my head. But that was going to be pretty expensive. I think on the low end it was going to be like $800 just to buy the hot water heater, and then that's not even including having it installed.
and I was like, that's not a problem. We're doing this. Let's just get it done. I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
But Zach's so creative, and he's so good at researching things.
Well, I didn't even know if that was going to solve the problem, honestly, because most of the hot water heaters we were looking at were the same tank size and everything. So, we might have had a new one and the same old problems.
That's true.
But we installed, with the help of my stepdad, and when I say help, I mean basically he did everything, electric element that just screws in, basically. It was a little more complicated than that, since we had a 16-year-old RV. We had to get through a lot of rust to get it screwed in there. So it goes in where a water heater's anode rod typically is, which is just some metals in a rod that will be dissolved and corroded by the water, sort of as a sacrificial goat to not allow the sides of the tank to get corroded and dissolved. So maybe we're sacrificing a little bit of that by having this rod or this element installed. But we did notice a immediate difference. So now we're able to, when we get to a park, we plug in our 30 amp power from our RV to the electrical box, and that runs, our whole RV. And then typically there is just a regular socket in there that I'm able to run an extension cord to and plug into it also. And that will run just our hot water heater. And some parks don't have those, so I'll get a little creative and loop the extension cord around and plug it into an outside outlet on the RV. And I prefer to plug straight into the box, but, sometimes you have to do it differently. And then also, it's not as nice when you're boondocking, or like we're kind of mooch docking right now.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really have anywhere to plug in two different things. So, and when you're boondocking, of course, you're not really plugged in at all. And I'm not sure that if you were running off solar or a generator, if it would even have long enough to heat the water. But yeah. I'd say that this was definitely one of the biggest improvements next to the mattress, because we went from having, like Sarah said, really short showers with almost no hot water to where I can take a shower, as long as I like to. I don't really take very long ones. And the water's really hot, and we always have the opportunity, too, if we wanted to, that I could go out and turn the element up to make it even hotter. And then, with mixing hot and cold water, would be able to extend those showers even further.
Yeah, but we do still try to, even if we're connected to water at a park. There's something about living in a confined space makes you try to conserve your resources more. So we do try to, use the smallest amount of water possible when washing dishes and the smallest amount of water possible when taking showers and stuff. So we haven't really needed to do that yet.
Yeah, and I think living in an RV just makes you way more aware of how much resources you use, especially trash. When you're having to gather all your trash and take it to a dumpster or something rather than just putting it out on the street and to be picked up, you're aware of how many trips you make and how much trash you're producing. And, with water, we have the holding tanks in the RV. So we realize, if we filled it up in, just a couple days, we're probably using a lot of water and maybe wasting some that we shouldn't need to use. So I think it does help us conserve our resources and learn to do that a little better. And one thing I noticed while we've been up here behind Sarah's aunt and uncle's house is the first time we did this, we ran out of water within like 4 days and our tanks were full. And now we've been here 6 days and we're still pretty good. We're almost out of water now, but I think it shows that we're learning to conserve and boondock a little bit better.
Yeah, which is great because I'm hoping that when we get out more to the Midwest and the West where boondocking's a little bit more popular, that we'll be to the point where we can finally do that. So those are two of the big things that we did to make life more comfortable in the RV. We definitely changed some other things up, like replaced curtains and painted, and we'll have to do a video tour of the RV sometime in the future.
And I'm sure here on the podcast too, we'll talk about more stuff as it pops into our head.
Yeah,
I know
definitely.
even remembering those two things, I had trouble remembering what we had done since it's just been like 2 years ago. But
Yeah. So going back to Hudson and Emily, they have a blog that they keep, hudsonandemily.com, and it's amazing. They also remodeled the interior of their RV, and they have a blog post about what they did and how they did it, and it's really fascinating to see how they transformed their living space. And I thought it was interesting how they're kind of similar to us, how when Zach and I started, we were like, we'll do this for 1 or 2 years. And we kind of had an end date in mind. And now we're just kind of like, well, there's still so much we want to see and so much we want to do. So we're not ready to call it quits. And we're almost at the 2-year mark. And Hudson and Emily started at the end of January. They moved into their RV and they went down to Florida. And they said that originally they had been planning to just tour for a year. But now they're kind of thinking more indefinitely as well because there's still so much to see and so much to do. And I think that's a common trend, really, with people who move into RVs. It's never, I mean, some people are intentional about it and they plan to do it long term and or permanently. But I think a lot of times people do it just as a way to be able to travel more and explore more and get out there more. And they don't really think about it as a long-term solution. But then you just kind of fall in love with it. You fall in love with the driving, you fall in love with waking up at a new destination, and you fall in love with opening your front door, and it's your front door to your house, and you open it up to a new site every couple of weeks, or in some cases every couple of days. And it's just incredible and amazing. And if you've ever considered traveling by RV, I definitely suggest that you just jump in and do it. Yeah, there will be some planning involved and definitely some saving depending on your circumstances, but it's definitely a worthwhile adventure to go on.
so I think that's it from us today. So let's jump into the interview with Hudson and Emily.
Thank you so much for coming on, and yeah, I love to hear that people are listening and enjoying it, so thanks for that too. I guess let's get started and start off if you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves and just kind of how you started the decision, like how you made the decision to live and travel in an RV.
Yeah, well, we both grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we met in 5th grade and we started dating then in high school. And then we went to the same college together, and it was there that we kind of decided we both wanted to travel the U.S. someday.
So, as we researched it more, we decided that RVing would be the best option to allow flexibility as we traveled. So after we graduated, we got married and we started really intentionally planning and saving. So 4 years after we got married, we quit our jobs and hit the road.
So what other options did you guys consider besides RVing?
We also looked at just going to some of the top places in each state and flying there, but that was just way too expensive.
And we also couldn't make up our mind of what the top things were.
So we're
Yeah.
skiing is definitely the best and most cost-effective option.
So it sounds like you guys were both pretty much immediately on board with this idea, or did one of you take more convincing than the other?
Yeah, we both loved to travel, so it was kind of, I had done a research paper on traveling around the world, and then we came up with the idea of, well, why don't we start in our own country first and get to see kind of where we live first, and we've been loving it.
That's awesome. What's been some of the biggest adjustments on moving into an RV?
That's a good question. I think one thing is definitely we just didn't think through the differences in the weather. So we've been on the road for like 4.5 months, and we've been to some places where we're worried about like freezing and, having to worry about heating the water tanks. And then we've been to Phoenix and it was 114 degrees. So that's something we didn't exactly anticipate, was the swing of the weather.
Yeah, I will definitely second that one.
Yeah, and I've always been somebody who didn't mind hot weather and hated it when it's cold, but I think RVing has reversed that for me because our RV heats pretty well, but when it's hot, it's really hard to cool down in here.
That's
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. We when we flew back, Phoenix had about 120-degree weather when we got back to our RV, and we
Oh
realized
my
pretty
goodness.
quickly that that
It's an oven.
yeah, the RV doesn't cool down too well in that type of heat.
No, it's like the greenhouse effect you get in a car. It's just, but you're living in it.
Yeah, and then if you're in it for a couple hours and you decide to walk outside the RV, you're like, oh wow, there's a breeze out here.
Yeah.
So, how did you guys kind of cope with that, like heat changes? Did you have to cave and get a hotel for a day or two, or were you able to just kind of relax outside during the day and it cooled off at night?
Well, fortunately, here, one of the things that we never, because we hadn't been to Arizona in our RV before this, but just with the elevation change, it dropped probably about 20 or 30 degrees. So we
You
went
spent
up
like
to,
a few hours further.
yeah, so we went up to Flagstaff and just kind of kept the windows open and stuff. Um,
That's helped a lot.
so yeah, it's crazy how, yeah, in a couple hours, the change can be. They said like they get 120 inches of snow, I think, a year up here, which I don't think of when I think of Arizona.
I know you usually don't because it's so hot in the summer. You're like, that's a hot state. It's not a cold state.
Right.
And that's one thing we were hoping for when we went from Georgia up here to Pennsylvania, but so far it's been every bit as hot here.
Yeah, and the humidity too. That's one nice thing about being over here is at least it's the dry heat, so we don't have too much humidity.
So was there any one like aha moment that you guys had that, when you really realized you wanted to live in an RV and travel all 50 states, or did this just kind of creep in and you don't even know where it came from?
I definitely remember like the time when we were in college, we were sitting on a couch together talking about just we both loved to travel. It was actually Emily who came up with like the idea of neither of us grew up with families who RV'd or anything, but for some reason she suggested, how about someday we get an RV and we travel to all 50 states? And it was kind of a joke at the time, but then we just kind of over the next 4 or 5 years really started saving and planning, and it became more of a reality instead of just a joke.
I think a big thing for me was I don't want to like live my whole life and be 70 years old and say I've never been to North Dakota or Kansas before. So some of these states we're spending a lot longer in than others, but we're really trying to experience what each state is known for. Like when we went to Texas, we tried to do like a rodeo and eat barbecue, and so that's been one of our favorite things, is just experiencing the states for what like the locals know them for.
That's awesome. I think Marcy had mentioned that when you guys initially planned to do this, you were planning for RVing for 1 year. Is that still kind of your plans, or has this changed? Are you guys thinking more indefinitely?
Yeah, it was definitely a year was our plan, but we spent about 6 weeks in Florida and then 4 weeks in Texas. So we've just each state we go, we want to take our time. So it's going to be longer than that. I'm not sure how much longer, but it's going to be ending up more than a year.
I think that's a pretty common theme, actually, because when Zach and I started, we were like, we'll do this for about 2 years, and that should be enough time to hit all 50 states. But we're almost at the 2 year mark, and I think by the end of the summer, we'll have hit 25. So we're like, yeah, there's really no end in sight for us.
Yeah, it's
Hard to get
addicting.
back.
I saw somebody's Twitter tagline today that I thought was funny. It said 3 years into a 1 year trip. So I feel like that's kind of us.
Yeah,
too.
that's
That's awesome.
definitely, I feel like how RVing ends up becoming.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so great because it really gives you the flexibility to come and go. And I mean, we've visited family members pretty frequently because of this. We've been able to go to weddings, and it's made it easier for us to get around to our work. They're based in Atlanta, but we've got clients all over the state. So we've kind of been able to just be like, well, we're close by, so let's go on site real quick. And so it's just been really kind of a cool thing that we've done.
Yeah,
It's
that's
really
awesome.
So while you guys travel, how do you make it work? Are there any sort of, are you guys doing any sort of business online to make money along the way, or doing, things locally wherever you are?
Nope. we actually just really wanted to focus on traveling, so we really intentionally saved the first 4 years of our marriage and just quit our jobs. So we aren't working, just traveling.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a good idea. Saving up money so that you can really focus on the travel and the experiences. I mean, with us, we both work full time, so our experiences are mainly on the weekends and sometimes in the evenings. So we're definitely going about this a lot slower than some other people might. But it's kind of cool to hear about, the other side of it, where you're not just working remotely, you're really like living intentionally and fully and really taking the most advantage of this that you can. So are there any personal habits that you've developed or that you had before that you've found make living life on the road easier?
Well, one definitely is we try to wake up before, especially if we're going to the Grand Canyon here recently, try to wake up early and get there before the crowds do, because we found that when we do that, that just sets our whole day up a lot better. It's also cooler than during the day and everything. So that's definitely been, when we do follow that, it's been a huge help for sure.
And for us, which is so opposite of how I used to be such a planner, but for us, we've found that having a rough outline but not making any set plans has really helped us in being flexible. And then if we're really enjoying a certain area, we can stay there longer, or just kind of figure it out a little more as we go.
That's awesome. One question that we get asked a lot is how are we able to, I guess, stand each other, being together all the time? I mean, I guess you guys have been dating since your school days, so it might be a little bit different for you guys, but have you noticed any changes that you've had to make in your relationship since you're constantly living together and seeing each other and not saying goodbye to go to work or anything like that?
Yeah, we definitely, growing up, my neighbors, they were full-time RVers, and so they gave us great advice before we left for the trip. They said, make sure that every argument you have, that you end as quickly as you can, because you can't really get away from each other. And so that definitely has been a big help of realizing that, you can't always just take some time away and have to work things out pretty quickly.
Do you guys have any, stories from the road or any big highlights that have been, a super memorable part of your trip that you'd like to share?
Yeah, we're just so grateful for some of the experiences we've had. I think two that stand out the most to me are both related to things that I was scared to do, but I'm really glad I did. The first was we got to swim with sharks in the Florida aquarium.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. They were big, but it was really, really cool. And then the second was in Texas. We went to this place where it's like a thrill amusement park, and they had a 120-foot free fall. So you're not, they have you in a harness, and then they unclip you, drop for 120 feet into a net. So those were the longest 2.5 seconds of my life. But I think from that, I've learned that the experiences that have stretched us a little bit have been some of our favorites.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I'm definitely afraid of heights, and I've been kind of thinking about, what kind of things I could do. I saw that you guys took a hot air balloon ride at Sunrise recently, and that looks amazing. So maybe I'll branch out of my comfort zone and try something like that, because it still seems like it's a little safe, but might challenge me a little bit.
Yeah, there's actually someone on our ride that they had a fear of heights, and they went and they really enjoyed it a lot because it is really cool and a great way to see the area that you're in.
Yeah, I think that's just been one of my favorite parts too, is just experiencing like creation more, and I've just really been grateful that like we're blessed to see so much of God's creation. That's been one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think we share the same thought because we've been trying to, hike in every state and every stop that we go to. So just being outdoors and being able to see, all the different waterfalls and caves and climbing all these mountains and seeing all these great views is definitely part of the highlights for us too. Um, do you have like a single, most challenging or worst experience that you really felt like you learned and grew from?
Well, we kind of laugh, I feel like, and you guys probably know for sure that RVing, it's almost like every day it's almost like, well, what's going to be the new challenge today or something. But
Yeah.
probably one of our most interesting challenges was we were in Kansas, and for some reason we looked up and we saw that we weren't too far away from the world's largest ball of twine. And it was in this city called Cawker City, Kansas. So it wasn't next to like anything, but we decided to go there and we'd stop for like 10 or 15 minutes and take some pictures. And we thought it was going to be a quick trip. And we jumped back into our RV to hit the road, and the RV, the air suspension went out. And so like our
Oh
brakes
my
went,
goodness.
so we couldn't even,
Drive
yeah.
or have it towed, because that was like the number one thing they needed to work to tow it.
So for the long story short, we ended up spending, it was like 85 miles away to the nearest place that could work on our RV, and we had no idea what was going to happen, but fortunately God really provided that someone was able to come out, never worked on RVs before, but said that 18-wheelers are kind of the same, so he ended up fixing it, and the next day we hit the road. But it was funny because we slept like probably like 30 feet away from the world's largest ball of twine that night.
Yeah, when you'd only plan to be there for 10 or 15 minutes. That's kind of cool.
We call experiences like that once in a lifetime experiences, because you only want to experience them once in your lifetime.
Yeah, that's definitely the plan. So you've mentioned that you were given some different pieces of advice on and off when you guys started planning this, and then once you guys hit the road. But if you had to think of like one best piece of advice that someone gave you about RVing, what would that be?
It sounds cliche, but I just really just enjoy the journey. I think especially in an RV, like just always being on the move to the next place, it can be easy to just like miss out on like so many special moments that happen along the way. So that's something we've been trying to be intentional about, is like appreciating, even like when we're driving, just like how beautiful it is.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best pieces that we were given too, actually. It's be intentional, take advantage of as much as you can. But then I think one thing that you guys have mentioned a lot is how you have to be really flexible. I mean, you can't be too set on any plans because things break, things go wrong. Parks that you want to stay at get booked up and full, or tickets to the tourist thing that you want to do get sold out. So you really have to kind of just go in the moment and roll with it and just see what happens. So
Definitely. Yeah, another piece of advice that a friend of the family gave me was make sure that you don't argue when you're backing up. That he said that's number one time that, at least for him, that arguments happen. So that's really good advice of making sure that when Emily's directing me back, to make sure that it's nobody's fault if we get stuck somewhere.
yeah, I mean, those high stress moments, it can be easy to have a short temper. So it's another moment where you have to be really intentional. I do love this person and I do not want to fight with them. Yeah. So what would you say, one thing that you guys have learned the hard way, beyond all the advice you've been given?
We didn't know, and we still don't know much about our being, but we're loving it, so we're grateful for that.
I would say probably the hard lesson that we learned was right at the beginning. We drove from Pennsylvania down to Florida, kind of made like a beeline down there for the warm weather. And it was our first time filling up the RV with water since the winter. And we found out that pretty much every single one of our pipes had burst from, I guess, when I winterized. I think I winterized a little bit too late in the fall. And so we had all of our pipes frozen and kind of a little river going down the middle of our RV. But just realizing to make sure to winterize as soon as it starts getting cold and not waiting to the last minute.
So, Emily, I know that you do have, a blog that you post to pretty frequently, and, you guys need to plan some things in your journey. So do you guys use some sort of like internet provider, or do you try to depend on the Wi-Fi in the parks and use their services? How do you guys handle that issue?
Wow, that is a great question. That is the one thing that we didn't know anything about, and we're really grateful that we found a solution. We have a Verizon jetpack that we can just use to connect our computers to, and that has really helped because from what we've heard and experienced, RV park Wi-Fi is really slow, and also we don't do a lot of RV parks to begin with. We do a lot of boondocking, so we're grateful that that's worked out so well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we actually use the Verizon hotspot too, and it's worked out pretty good for us so far. I don't think we've had any places where we've had like any dead spots and not been able to use it. So you said you do a lot of boondocking. How has that experience been? Do you guys have pretty self-contained systems, or how do you adapt for that?
Yeah, with boondocking, we actually do a lot of we'll kind of, again, it goes, I guess, with the flexibility of when we're done visiting an area, we'll kind of hit the road and start driving. And then it's kind of like when we start getting tired, we start making plans for where do we want to stay. So a lot of our boondocking is actually just in like parking lots. We found like Walmarts or Cracker Barrels or Home Depots. And we call ahead to make sure, because some do and some don't let you sleep there. And so we'll call ahead and just make sure that they are okay with it. And then as far as our system goes, I think it's like a 90-gallon water tank. So we normally dump at like truck stops like Flying J's. And so we can go about 5 or 6 days without having to dump, depending on how long our showers are and everything like that.
Yeah, that's something that we didn't plan for. We like budgeted for a lot of campgrounds, but that's been a great way to save money and also be right near Walmart. So anytime we need groceries, we can restock.
Yeah, we definitely have gone there a couple times.
Yeah, we've taken advantage of that too a little bit on our longer hauls, but usually we like to keep our driving days to about 5 or 6 hours. So we usually go campground to campground, but boondocking is definitely something I'd like to do more of when we get out west and, stay more in some of the parks that don't necessarily have hookups and just kind of park wherever. And because those pictures are always so amazing. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we were talking with some people that we met up who are full-time RVers, and they are currently in Colorado, and they were saying, and I think it is so true, that seems like the West and Midwest is just so much more, there's so many more RVers who are doing it either full-time or for long trips. And so boondocking is a lot easier than it is in the East Coast when you basically go 2 hours and then you're in some city or suburb. So it's a lot easier, definitely, since we've gotten out further west.
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing. But I think the farthest west we went was Texas. And other than that, we've mostly stayed in the East, a little bit in the Midwest, but mostly the East. So I think later this fall or early next winter will be when we actually start getting further out west. So, but we've said that before and then plans change. So
yeah, plans always change.
Yeah, we try to steer away from telling people where we're going to be in a certain month because it always ends up being different.
We've made the mistake of telling friends or family, oh yeah, in July we'll be in your state, and then it's 3 months later.
Yeah, and they're like, where are you? I thought you were going to visit me. And you're like, oops, no. So I guess to kind of close things out, if you had, one piece of advice from all of your experiences that you've, gone through personally for people who might be considering moving into an RV or just going on the road in general, what would that be?
Well, I think one thing that's awesome about RVing is that it's just different for everyone. But one thing I've really been grateful for is the resources that are available online and Facebook groups of especially other young couples that we've met who are doing the same thing. So that's been one thing that has helped us a lot.
And then also another thing, again, we were completely new to the RVing and everything, but because of resources and stuff online, we decided to buy we have an old 17-year-old RV, but it was great because we got to kind of renovate it and make it more of our own, and we've definitely enjoyed kind of feeling like our home away from home in our RV.
Yeah, that's the thing I love most about RVing is that, you're traveling all the time, but at the end of the day, you get to go back to your own house. That's really been kind of one of the biggest perks for me. And, Zach and I both have looked at pictures of your RV, and you guys did an amazing job with it. I mean, it looks so great. I love everything that you guys did.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. That means a lot to us.
All the planning and everything was Emily.
We couldn't have done it without my dad either. He spent like months just pouring his time into it. So we're really grateful for how it turned out.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've heard stories of like people who, when they started going out on the road, they had, some negative responses from their friends and family. But Zach and I have both been so lucky that I don't think we had one negative response. I mean, everyone has been so supportive and, encouraging. And it seems like you guys had the same experience where your family was thrilled and your friends are excited to follow your journeys. So
yeah, we're super grateful for that. That's made a big difference. And we're grateful to have met up with so many friends along the way too. That's been a really special part for us, is reconnecting with friends we haven't seen in a little while.
One thing you mentioned is that you've been meeting, other young couples on the road. Do you have any tips or hints for people who are looking to, expand their social network and really, make more connections and meet more people while traveling?
One thing that we really found is just like online resources. I mean, even like this podcast or Facebook groups of just kind of searching out areas online that people enjoy traveling, and then that's how we found everyone.
Yeah, especially Instagram. It's so funny how I feel like once I follow someone, then they'll share about someone they met up with, and then I start following them. It's like this whole network of people that we want to meet up with now along the way.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, we definitely have our few favorites that we follow and try to chat with from time to time. So it's really cool, the stories that you hear and the things you learn about while you're on the road too. Hopefully at some point we'll be in the same area and we can meet up on the road too.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It definitely seems like RVing is such a family community. So we would love definitely being in the same area and getting to meet you guys in person.
Yeah, that would be really cool. So I guess last question. Of course, we're going to, link to a couple of things from you guys on our show notes page for everyone to check out and learn more about you guys. But is there anything, particular that you want to plug, or, how can people reach out to you and get in contact with you if they wanted to meet up or anything?
Oh, well, thank you. Our blog and social media outlets are all Hudson and Emily. So yeah, we love connecting with people and meeting up or getting advice of best places to see and do. So yeah, thank you guys so much for interviewing us. This was awesome, and we're really excited to continue following the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. We love talking with other RVers for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this has been really fun for us, and I've been, excited to hear about your story for a while now. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we did. You may have noticed that we had a little bit of technical difficulties during part of the episode, and Zach's microphone stopped working, so towards the end, it became a little bit more of the Sarah show. But those things happen, and I really appreciate Hudson and Emily being so patient and working with us through it and staying on the line while we got things situated. And we really love talking to them, and I hope that they have so much fun on their travels. And like I said earlier, I definitely hope that we cross paths and can hang out in person sometime.
Yeah, so like they mentioned in the interview, be sure to check out all their social media pages where their handles are Hudson and Emily. And then check out their website at hudsonandemily.com. So go give them a follow, a like, and check out their blog. It's really nice. And they got a lot of good content up there. And they've done a lot of cool interviews of people themselves.
Yeah, and I think in the interview they mentioned that they're trying to do, what each state is known for. And so they're keeping a pretty good record of things like that they're doing on their blog. So it definitely also gives you some good ideas of some fun things to do in each state. And so definitely check it out if you're planning a little road trip.
And as always, be sure to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook at facebook.com/listentl, or you can search Thinking Liberty. And then our Twitter handle is listentl also. And then the show notes for this page for anything that we mentioned or Hudson and Emily mentioned and links to their blogs and things like that will be at thinkingliberty.com/11.
And if you enjoyed this episode and you feel like you learned something from it and you appreciated it, definitely, leave us a comment, send us a message, give us some feedback on it. If there's anything that you would have liked us to ask or that you'd like to hear us talk about in the future, feel free to send that to us. And also, if you have some friends that love to travel, share it with one or two of them at least, and, talk to them about, oh, look, there's several couples that are RVing, and here's some things I learned from it.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed the interview, definitely share it with the one or two friends that you think would like it also. And thanks to everybody, too, who's been liking, rating, reviewing, all that good stuff on social media and on iTunes especially. So please keep those coming in. If you're enjoying the show, go give us a rating and a review over there. That helps us tremendously, and we really appreciate it. So that's it for this week. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Thinking Liberty. Subscribe to the show for free on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher at thinkingliberty.com. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, articles by Zach and Sarah, and more. We'll see you next time.